Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and thank you very much for joining us on Viewpoint. Viewpoint is one of your favorite evening debate program on DBS television, and we go live from Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. With us here in the studio, we are having Professor Mark Anthony. He is a social anthropologist. It's not the first time that we are having him, and we will be discussing certain issues related to Cameroon and, of course, some border crises. Good evening to you, Professor, and thank you very much for coming.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to my fellow panelists and to the 1,000 viewers watching at us at this particular moment. I want to tell you this particular season is a season where each and every one of us must be very careful in order to survive for the next year. If possibly you live till next year, and then you should be very happy at what you gain.
We need to be very careful. Thank you very much for that advice. And we are having Mange Venashus, a professor's co-panelist. Good evening to you, Mange, and thanks for coming.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to our viewers. You know, when Professor spoke, it was the warning is timely, but then it was as if I felt it again, as if it is frightful, you know. You know, because if we live to next year, it's so mind searching, you know.
All right, let us take the first part of the show. Question 1 is the recent discussion between the Cameroon government and separatist leaders any headway to solving the Anglophone crisis? Professor.
Considering the fact that the Minister of Communication actually debunked the whole idea of
holding a meeting,
I want to say I'll have a question mark there, but if that is what could be done, then I'll say yes, it's having a head.
Yes, it's having a headway. Yes. All right, Mange Venashus.
Yes, I share the same opinion. Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. Question 2. Is the increased insecurity in the political capital a cause for alarm? Professor?
Yes.
Mange Venashus?
It does. It is.
It is. And our last question for tonight is blocking African countries from the Schengen area an advantage for Africans? Mange Venashus?
Yes, it is.
Professor?
It should be a great advantage for them.
It should be a great advantage. So today we are faced with the yes answers. Let us come up with the debate. Welcome back. In our first question, like Professor rightly said, the government of the Minister of Communication debunked the fact that no meeting has been held with the separatist leader, and so therefore he thinks that if in case any such meeting has been held before, then yes, we should be hoping of a headway to solving the Anglophone crisis. So, Professor, given that aspect, what actually do we expect, or how is it going to help solve the Anglophone crisis?
You know, for a very long period of time, we have been actually calling for dialogue. And from every corner of Africa and the world, the calls for dialogue actually had been made to the government of Cameroon and to the separatists. So far, we have not gotten anything serious done, especially when we left the last time and gathered in Yaoundé in the name of a national dialogue, which actually till present day, this is about 10 months after that particular dialogue, no results actually have been implemented on the ground. We still see a commission that is sent out as a commission of reconstruction. We still see we have seen special status. Nobody knows the content of that special status till now. And looking at all that, you discover that what happened did not yield fruit. But I believe as an individual that the best way to actually resolve such a problem is to get head on with the separatists. If the government can talk with the separatists and their leaders, that will help in one way to solve the problem. And how would that be happening? as in one of the sister platforms, I mentioned something. I said there that it is good that this talk should be on the ground. It should not be something that should be announced to people. If they can go underground and solve the problem, it will yield more fruits than when we are doing a lot of shouting like what they did in the national dialogue in Yaoundé last year. You see, a lot of people have already suffered because of this particular problem. A lot of people are suffering right now. I was telling somebody, as an individual, I've lost so much. I was not in Douala, left but the southwest to come here. I was practically living in a corner and working in Boya. So look at me, I'm here in Douala, not because I wanted to. What about my farms in Ekona? My house, nothing. So we need to solve the problem because a lot of people are suffering. And if the government thinks that using dialogue, one-on-one dialogue to discuss, to handle the problem is the best way, I want to say it is one of the best ways, and that I should recommend. But if they rejected, like the minister came out and said nothing had happened like that, it is contrary to the fact that those guys are waiting trial. Which is something that actually some of us are laughing because I can't actually say it happened, but I know it happened.
And government's communication comes 4 days after the information had
been going out for days. And so those are some of the things that we put questions. So, you know, especially when you are dealing with a government, with let me use the word, with a regime that is really already has lost the trust of the people. When things like this come up, people get to doubt whether they are true or not. And so we surely will encourage the government to go ahead and deal with that particular issue. Let them go on with the discussions if they can.
If they can. Mangavenashu, so you also are saying that there is a hard way to solving the Anglophone crisis in case the government held a meeting with the separatist leaders, Isiku, Ayuk, and Co, and the others.
Yes, Vanessa, if that were the case, I think that we would have been heading towards a solution out of this crisis, a crisis that has gone on for close to 4 years. Remember, with the major national dialogue, we came out with resolutions and nothing has happened. I think that it's high time the government should understand that negotiation, when you want to negotiate with somebody, it does not make you weaker, or it does not make you smaller. No. When this crisis began, you know, those who raised their positions asked for certain revendications. The government refused completely. When they refused, when they could not convince them of their other position, and we are where we are now. So I think that if we have tried, you know, using all what we have used and we are not getting somewhere, I think that we should use this issue of dialogue. Remember, when the news came on air, it was around the 2nd of July. When you listen to every other person, or the reaction of every other person, it was a welcome initiative. Everybody was of the opinion that if that has happened, then God should help us reach a solution to this crisis. Vanessa, we're talking of a crisis that has affected lives of Cameroonians, which 10 years, 20 years from today, we will never correct what has happened. Because we are talking of children who have not gone to school for 3 years, this is the 4th year, they don't know what school means. What will happen to them? Many of them, their destinies, their futures has automatically changed because they are into something else which was not theirs because of the crisis. And if there is something to talk about it, when you listen, when you read most of the papers that were published on Monday, yesterday, one of the papers actually said it was UN-imposed ceasefire. When the coronavirus outbreak was announced in January, the Secretary General of the United Nations called for areas in crisis to declare a ceasefire so that they can contain the spread of the virus. Cameroon is one of such countries with the northwest and southwest region crisis. And if the government says they did not get into a negotiation, well, we don't know the means government is trying to do to solve the crisis. But when I listened to the communique of the Minister of Communication, it was so ambiguous, you know, when the minister said anybody, you know, spreading the information that the government negotiated with separatists is not in conformity with reality. But then the government is open to any negotiation to solve the crisis. I think if the government had to read the reaction of Cameroonians, the reaction of the international community, it means talking with these separatists would have been a way forward. So I think that they should have taken the opportunity and engage into talks. I like what the professor was saying. They should engage with the talk in private. I think that would, because when you look at on both camps, there are people who don't want this crisis to end on both camps. And once we mediatize it, and I pray that should be the situation, or that should have been the idea, the ideology behind government's reaction. So when we mediatize the talk, those who don't want the crisis to end will fuel division, will fuel all kinds of, you know, lies, and
but don't you think that mediatizing it will make it more transparent?
More transparent, because they will never sit in any media or any open platform and exchange. The discussion is supposed to be on, out of camera, out of public view, so that they come to compromise between the two parties. Because from every indication, it is these leaders who can put an end or put a call for a ceasefire in this crisis. When you look at those who are promoting the crisis, even from abroad, they applauded when the purported information was published on the 2nd. They applauded the idea that if the negotiations is ongoing, it may lead to ceasefire, which means if government touches that channel, we may have a way out. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for your contributions. Question 2 is the increased insecurity in the political capital cause for alarm. And Professor, you said yes. We know that weeks back we heard there were some explosives at home point. Damas, that is, this one is just of recent, but we've heard of Melen and Emana. So, and you think it's a cause for alarm? Have you not had such cases before?
We had such cases before in the northwest and in the southwest, not in the central region. And my reason why I say it is a call for alarm is because I'm getting to doubt whether it is the separatists who are actually carrying on that particular activity. At the same time, I'm looking at it like a setup in order to further maltreat Anglophones who are based in Douala, in Yaoundé. Because the areas we are talking about, Melen is highly populated
predominantly by Anglophone.
Damas is the same.
Emana
might be a little bit different because it's actually mixed, but Melen and Damas, those areas are highly populated with Anglophones. And look at it, when that happens, when the military comes, they go into the Anglophones and they are arresting some of them. That to me is a call for concern, really a call for concern. Is it a means to actually go further in maltreating even those that are not in the northwest and southwest who are run and entered into the south, into the central region? Is it a means to actually solve the problem? Those are questions some of us were asking, because I don't think that a bomb happening in the central region, precisely in Yaoundé, is a move that will benefit any of the separatists. So I don't even think that they are the ones behind it. And apart from that, the question I'm asking is, what is the reason for that? Who did that? And what does that person want from Yaoundé?
From Yaoundé.
So when you start asking those questions, you might end up missing somewhere. But one thing I know is that I think at this particular moment there is need for much security, but to protect the people. I think from what I've experienced in the southwest is I don't think at times I encourage when the military and the police go out, because most at times when they go out, instead of calming issues, they flame them. Yeah, so I don't know why such a thing should happen in the capital city.
Repeatedly.
Who actually repeatedly. That's 3 different times. Who actually took his time? And the other one in Melen was at the Carrefour. So the question is, how was it actually planted there? And you start asking, is our security in Cameroon okay? Can Cameroonians actually be certain that they are safe with things like that happening? So there are so many things to look into. So it calls for consent in different areas. You start asking questions, and if you want to keep on asking those questions, you might end up getting to things that maybe you were not supposed to get into. So as an individual, I would just want to say, let the government beef up security and see into it that the lives of the citizens are preserved and protected, because such an act, I would not want to accept that a civilian.
Lucky enough, because if there were civilian
they would have
in that crowd,
so
we would have been talking of casualties.
Those are some of the things you ask. Which civilian will go and set a local bomb in a place where he knows that anybody might be standing there? And secondly, what is he looking for? If he does not want to affect the people, what does he want? Is it just to give an indication that something is happening? Then that should not be somebody with a bad intention. That should be somebody who is calling for attention. So the question is, who can that be?
Who can that be?
Yes.
It remains a question mark, equally giving the government some highlights to go deep into investigation or research. Mange Venatius, you say it is a cause for concern about the increased insecurity in our political capital, Yaoundé.
Actually, Vanessa, it needs the authorities to sit up. I think it should be giving the authorities, especially the authorities of the center region, sleepless nights. Because if at this moment they can sleep, then there is something wrong somewhere. Because when there's a crisis in the far north or in the northern part of the country, it started with Boko Haram. There were these suicide bombers who were mingling in the society, and in the market they just explode. Everything was done to make sure that it does not move down south. Successfully, I don't know whether it was successfully or luckily. I don't know whether it was the security tactic might that succeeded in preventing it from reaching down south. It ended in the far north or in the northern part of the country. Now, I remember when people were traveling from Garua right down here, there was serious search. Even in the schools, they told us, schools, markets, make sure that you search everywhere before you sit, because a bomb could be everywhere. Now we are living in a situation where, at a time where security in the country it should be the priority of every administrator. If we have bombs in Yaoundé, within the space of 2 weeks, we have 3 explosions in the capital city, then our backyard is completely gone. We have we have nothing to count on. Because if they could penetrate, be it from the northwest, be it from the north, be it from the east, into the center region, it means everything is gone. Because one would ask the question, is it that they were Anglophones who brought the bomb?
Because that is what some people...
Why are they arresting Anglophones, searching the homes of Anglophones? Can somebody not leave, call it Obili? Obili is still Anglophone.
Still Anglophone.
Can somebody not leave Vogada? Can somebody not leave Bastos? Come and plant it at Damas? Can somebody not leave Etudi? Come and plant it at Milan? Can somebody not leave Sam? Come and plant it at Milan? Is this as if somebody lives here, go and plant here? What we are forgetting is that when there is an enemy in the house, you need to be very tactful. Because you don't just think that the enemy will sit in the house. No, he won't. The situation that we have here is the government, Vanessa, something of the sort almost happened here in Douala. When the petrol refineries in Douala here were almost blown off. Luckily enough, the devices did not work. And when experts tell us that if that had happened, it could take 45 days for the fire to be maintained. And it could burn 3/4 of the city of Douala. That did not happen. And if it is happening in the center region, I think that security devices, security apparatus in Cameroon has to be set up to the highest level. Because from every indication, anything can happen now. Anything. And we don't just think that It can happen, but in the northwest, it can happen in the southwest. I remember one guy commented on social media and was saying that is not new to them. He was commenting on Bomenda that they have been used to such kind of explosion, and that means nothing to them. But for those who have not been used to such kind of explosion, it means a lot. And the implication, I think that the authorities, especially security authorities, they have to sit up. They have to sit up because something is happening.
In all these, the lives of civilians are at risk.
And when it happens, like Professor said, it is the civilians that suffer. When the first one occurred, the people were arrested. The second one occurred, people were arrested. The third one occurred, people were arrested. Government keep telling us that investigations have been going on. We are already into the third week since the first one occurred. No headway. And we think that, anyway, let's believe that the government might have been having their tracks, that they are, trailing, the perpetrators. But we hope that such cases, we need the security. Cameroonians need to be secured. If not, then I think anything can happen in this country, Vanessa.
All right, Manga Venatius, I stay with you concerning our last question. Is blocking African countries from the Schengen area an advantage for Africans? Remember that when the EU was opening its borders, it sidelined some countries that will have access into the country, and 4 African countries were retained. But then, majority of countries in the African continent were not. But you think it's a plus, it's an advantage. Why should that be so?
Yes, it is an advantage for African countries, particularly for Cameroon, because when the European Union decides that Cameroonians will no longer enter the European Union zone area, I think that we should carry out that, reciprocity too. Give them that bit too. Because Vanessa, there are countries in that area that live from Africa. If they live on Africa, they are like parasites. If they live on Africa, if Africa should equally, you will not tell me that we said that people should not come to European Union. That's where France is located. Air France flies to Cameroon practically every day. When it comes to Cameroon, who is it coming to collect? When they can no more go to France, okay, you will collect from Cameroon, deposit them in Congo, and take them to Gabon, take them to Cotonou, take them to Egypt. But they will not enter them.
So Cameroon should retaliate like Gabon and Senegal.
Cameroon should block their borders, that nobody from the European zone, European Union zone, should enter Cameroon as well. Vanessa, if we look at what these countries exploit from Cameroon, what they gain from Cameroon, I want to be specific on Cameroon. Africa would be by extension. What they take from Cameroon, if they were to leave it in Cameroon, will be better than where we are. It is because I always insist on saying that let us not think that we cannot survive without them. They have proven to us, when the coronavirus started, they blocked their borders. They did not ask our opinion. They blocked their borders. Now, when the virus happened to have been, reducing, we seem to say borders should be open. And they say they are opening their borders, but we should not come. Which means they don't care about our well-being too, or they want to safeguard their interests first. Let us also safeguard our own interests. Let us use this as an opportunity to sever that link, to sever that neo-colonial link that has been existing in Africa since the colonial era. Let us cut it, because if we survived the 2 months, 3 months of coronavirus without them, and if we, from the 1st of July, when the borders were, or when most borders were opened, and we were blocked from entering there, if we have been surviving, it means 3 months, 3 years, 30 years, 300 years, we will survive. So I think that the African countries, and Cameroon in particular, should take that courage to say that we don't want you again in our continent, we don't want you again in Africa, and that will lead to the emergence, that will lead to the development of this continent, of this country, Vanessa.
All right, Mange Venatius. Professor, you said it's an advantage to the African continent. And we all know that when this coronavirus outbreak came out, some countries, even in the European Union, are more affected. In short, the rate of infections there is higher than what, if we gather all Africans' rate of infections, it will not even attain their own to, let's say, 10%. But yet, they still see that Africans should be left out from entering the Schengen area.
You see, imperialism and white supremacy is what is at play with all that. Africa has always been a place, a dumping ground. And they believed that their intention, let me use it this way, they actually had an intention, and that intention is to depopulate Africans, the black race as a whole. Because when you listen to some of them talk, I want to go a bit out of your question before I come back to your question.
Okay.
When I was listening to the wife of Bill Gates speaking, and she openly said, in fact, she located the blacks and the Native Americans that should be the ones first to receive the vaccine of coronavirus. I started asking questions. Why should it be blacks first? Why blacks? And I remember the last time the president of France categorically said, if Africa does not accept the vaccine, then they should not come to France. This is his follow-up, because he is one of the heads in
the European Union.
The European Union.
Yes.
So this is a follow-up. And to me, it is just the best decision that has been taken. Why? Because this is the opportunity that Africans ever needed. We are so creative, productive, and indigenous that if we get into us, we'll bring out what they had never experienced before. The first thing that the white man, precisely the Schengen group, the Europeans, fail to understand is that we have not forgotten that we are the ones who civilized them. We have never forgotten that. They might think that they have brainwashed every African, but no. Twice have we struggled to civilize them. But since it is a continent where barbarism is in the depths of their heart, they love propagating barbarism. You see, I got up the other day and I was angry when some parliamentarians wanted to block a bill that was supposed to be signed in the Congolese, in the Gabonese parliament concerning homosexuality. The European Union reacted and wanting to actually penalize the people who are fighting against it. What do you call homosexuality? That's barbarism, that's animalism, that is proof of uncivilized civilization. So those people, with their uncivilized nature, they have actually come into Africa and is struggling to push us into their path. So I think if they can stay out, it will help us. It will help us. If Africans can get back, the only thing is our educational system is imported from them. So if this is the time that our governments can say, okay, since you don't want us, let us scrap everything that you brought here and we rebuild from the base. Okay. And precisely, I will be sincere to tell you, the Africa has an indigenous educational system which had been used for generations. Somebody might want to know today, do you know that what you are calling that is coming from Greek, the Greek philosophers that studied in Africa?
Of course.
They studied in Africa. Do you know that in the year 700, the black Moors of North Africa actually went to Europe and conquered Europe and was ruling Europe for 700 years?
700 years.
So if you get to know all that, even to take a normal bath, Africans taught them how to bathe. So just imagine that. Then you get to realize that they are the most backward people that exist. So if this is an opportunity, let Africans take it with all their heart. Let's stop arguing and begging. They don't have anything they can give us. We have the raw materials, we have the riches here, we have the manpower. Africa has the most youngest manpower in the whole world. So if we can get to that, then we'll step out great. There's no need begging the white man.
There's no need begging the white man. Professor Mark Antonio, social anthropologist, it has been a pleasure having you.
It's always my pleasure.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Mange Venashus, hope to see you tomorrow again.
We'll be there, Vanessa. And
to you, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your kind, keen attention and for your perseverance to watch Viewpoint. Tomorrow is another day, and of course, God willing, we will be right back. Take care.